Okay, hi guys. I'm really glad you guys could make it. I would like to welcome you in the Orange campus in my working environment, and I'm looking forward to talk with you guys about individual training and player development. My name is Moris Hadzija, aka Coach Moris, and I'm a player development trainer from Top D Player Development and Ratiopharm Ulm.
I know it's before talking about practice.
Moris, welcome. I have to say, this is by far the best location we recorded so far.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for inviting us here. It's probably also the most modern location we ever recorded so far. What is the best thing about the Orange campus here?
To tell you the truth, I had the same first impression like you guys. You know, the best thing about it is because for coaches and for players, they kind of like the environment, and then that takes out like a lot good stuff when they train. It's a great location.
Have you been involved in actually designing the facility itself?
No. That was way back before I came here, and this is the idea from from the owners, and I think that's their own a dream, sort of.
What is your favorite location here? Like on the whole campus, what is your favorite spot?
Well, it's hard to say, I like many locations, but probably this is the location I spend the most of my time at, and it's sort of like my living room,
I would also like to welcome Fadi here. We're sitting in the middle of a court. Fadi, how do you feel? After 40 episodes now, you're sitting in the middle of a court of probably the most modern facility in Europe for basketball youth development. What do you think, Fadi?
It feels great. I had like same impressions as you had. And I've also been to a few basketball facilities now in the last weeks. I have to say, this is by far the best.
Thank you very much.
That's
I'm glad you guys like it.
By far the best. I already talked to another guy here. He said, sometimes there were times where players come in at midnight because they have just they can go in when they want, they can train. And I think that's kind of the dream, isn't it?
Most of the time I'm coming with them also in that late times or early in the morning.
Yeah.
How much do you think, before we start about our real topic today, how much do you think actually facilities, what impact do they have on players and the development of youth and professional players?
I mean, it's bring also essential role because, like you see, we got more than necessary, for the work we want to put in. So, I mean, it's bring a big, bring out like a big role,
Mm-hmm.
because I must mention, not so many teams in Europe or in the world have a luxury to use the facility for 24 hours a day. So this is like one of the advantages,
Mm-hmm.
And like you saw already, I mean, this is just one of the 3 courts we have, and we also have like a huge fitness area and athletic lab. So I think those are like huge advantages.
What do you think is like the feeling of a youth player that is coming here, is new, fresh to the Ratiopharm Ulm facility? They have to feel like so inspired. They have to feel like so to be part of that. What is the role?
I mean, it's always almost the same feeling. I mean, every time the young player come for the first time here, he's like, oh, it's like
it's crazy.
It's like a great thing to see,
One last question about the facility itself. We've been to a professional football program, and the guy there said he's not sure if actually all this environment, all this support, everything around it, right? In those football academies, the clothes are getting washed, you get everything prepared and stuff. What is your opinion? Do you think that's actually still a positive thing, or do you also see risks in actually providing the best circumstance for players and the luxury?
I really didn't think till this moment like that. I think the most important thing, is that it doesn't matter if it's this kind of facility or just a regular gym that you put a precise and proper work with the players.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main goal.
I mean, they still have to work, and that's the reason why we're here.
Of course. It doesn't matter about the environment or facility. You gotta find a way how to take the maximum out of the player, and this is the primary thing. I don't think they're gonna be spoiled if
Mm-hmm.
they are here and get all this service for them.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We're also talking about work today, individual work, individual training. Why do you think player development, skill training is so important? What is the meaning? What is the actual importance?
I mean, just by looking at the name, individual training, player development, it's just sort of like reveal its purpose, And I think most of the people out there, know that already. It's making players better, to training process and teaching specific skill sets. and preparing for the game situations. And in basketball, I think individual training is very, very essential, like addition to team practice, where you can constantly be able to boost players' base of fundamentals. And also it's a great addition to work on the upgrading and adding the new skill sets, and great addition in preparing the players for the upcoming problems in the games what they can meet in the near future.
You said a lot of stuff like the fundamentals, the upcoming games. How do you balance that? Like, it's a lot of task, obviously, for the individual training, but somehow like you have to decide on which to focus.
Yeah, but we develop here a kind of a unique working process, and this is based always on the load of the player, of course. But during the team practices, you cannot focus only on certain stuff. You always follow, like, in what direction your team got to go. So that's why you're always searching for additional slots for the players in order, to get better in the system what the organizations need, or for example what the current standards of the game are asking from the players. So you're right, and the question is really, really good. You got to find the optimum balance, how to even up the both processes. But I think we found a good way to do it, and I think we do it really, really good.
You said especially in basketball, individual training is really important. Do you think that's a basketball specific thing, or is it just a different culture in basketball?
No. I know lots of people who are doing the same thing, but in different sports. I know the player development or individual trainers in soccer or volleyball, or I don't know, in other sports. So I think the purpose in every sport should be the same. So it's just something what is like extra addition for players to benefit and grow quicker in the better players.
What attributes do influence how you do training? Like, for example, they're youth players, they're always the first team, they're like, I don't know if you train also females, but male, female, you have different skill sets. What are your first takes? What information do you get from athletes before you start making a training plan?
First, you got to know that, the informations are different in different processes. So for example, in off-season informations, you got to get specific informations, and during the in-season adjustments, you're kind of capable of following everything and seeing and taking the informations from videos of games or analytics or stats, and that's how you use these informations to tackle the problems. But as you mentioned already, I have a pretty unique position and a working position, because I need to handle a wide area. So I am in constant contact with youth players, with prospects, the guys who are on the bridge in transition from going from youth basketball to professional. Then I work with professionals, of course, and the last category I can mention here is the guys who are coming from injury, like a rehab process. So there are informations that are, different in all those categories. For example, youth basketball, you always got to, create a complete picture of the player base of fundamentals, and this is got to be like a primary thing to do, just boosting up that fundamentals based on characteristic and the position of the player. With prospects and professionals, you can already work with some advanced analytics or advanced informations which you can use in order to tackle the problems. And with the guys that are coming back from injury, this is very delicate process where you need to be precise. You got to have knowledge and be creative, because the most important informations there are coming from the medical staff. You got to follow them, and also from physio and talking to the players constantly before, during, and after the practice, because any small mistake there can be terrifying, or delay the process of healing, or even injure the player even more. So the information there are very, very important.
Is there a group that you favor, or a group that you like the most or inspires you the most?
Definitely. I found myself in the last couple of years, especially with a group of prospects. Those are the guys that are in transition. And I spend lots of time with this group, especially with our farm team, where we have this mandatory player development program. And I can say I spend lots of my time with a couple of individuals there in the last 2 years. One of them is, for example, last year, Igor Milicic, who is now with the Virginia NCAA team. The other guy is definitely Jeremy Sohan, who had an amazing year with Baylor and who is like having a possibility, or possible he's going to be like highly ranked on NBA draft this year. Or for example, this year with young Fedor Žugić, he's sort of in a transition, 18 years old, and and this is the category I like the most. I like to see this progress going in the right direction.
What do you think is the main attribute a player should have to actually move on quickly with your training, with skill development? Is there anything you identified in your experience in the past?
It's a combination of several things. There's got to be like a specific, talent that you need to work with, but also what I learned down the whole this year since I'm working that, the most eager one are the ones who are showing the best results, and you kind of try to awake that with the players as much as you can. This hunger for hard working ethic and this positive spite or anger, in order to get better. So I try to create like a competitive environment there. So
maybe we can just jump into the practical side of that, because I train handball, and I think as a coach, there's no better situation than actually the players being super motivated, super locked in, super focused on the task itself. How do you create that environment in practice or outside of practice? How do you create that practically?
I use different stuff. This is very, very important, and you gotta know. Not every day is the same. And you have days where players are like self-motivated a lot, and everything goes smoothly. But you have days where players need to learn, to find that motivation in themselves. And this is something where I jump in really, really good. But it's different things you can use with different personalities. Sometimes I try to make them angry, or sometimes I try to create an environment where the guy is really aware that he needs to beat the odds, and sometimes I just create like maybe funny environment, where I try to use in order to get the maximum out of my players.
One thing I would like to mention is I had a look at your Instagram. In the last 3 days, you did like a breakfast club in the early morning, already going in for the training session, getting that work in. After we watched a documentary of Michael Jordan, where we did the same in handball, but obviously we don't have the resources as you have. So how do you make that as a routine? Because if players come in once or twice and then shut it off again, it's hard to make progress. How do you get to the routine that they come again and make that progress?
This is a great question, but this is something what I didn't create lately. This is something what I'm doing for many years. And how do I create that players are constant? They realize that by themselves. They see the benefits and in their development. And the most eager ones are the ones who are basically asking me every day, "Are we going tomorrow? Are we going tomorrow?" So this is kind of crystallized itself. Of course, you have the ones who cannot follow this and be as disciplined, but most of the guys are using that as a great addition, in order to get better.
Where do you make the differentiation? You said the most eager ones are those who are successful, but those do not need to be the most talented one, right? So
Exactly.
how do you deal with those players who are talented but maybe not that consistent? What is your?
This is also what trainers got to know. You're never allowed to back down of that. You try to be the one who's going to wake that hardworking ethic in your players. Because this is your responsibility. You got to try to find a way how to bring it to the player in order to realize what kind of things that's going to bring him. Because I'm firmly believer that nothing happens overnight. I'm a little bit in a battle with the people who are like lazy. I cannot relate with the laziness. So I think, but this is a really, really important job from a good trainer. To wake that discipline in the players.
Let's say you guys come in on a regular basis. Now somehow you have to achieve something. How do you set up goals? What goals are you aiming for? Are they very objective, or do you have more like soft goals?
First of all, you got to know your players. You got to go through certain phase, know who you're dealing with, because not everybody's the same. But I set my goals based on position where the players currently are. So I'm trying to see what's the next thing what the player need to achieve, and I try to set realistic goals. Of course, with the most eager ones, you try to set high goals because that's not going to affect their mental side of the process. So this is basically how I set my goals. And also during the in-season adjustments, you can see where the specific player struggle with, and that's how you set the goals and organize the workouts in order to tackle the problems, Yeah.
On the practical side, what exactly could be a goal when a player comes in and you have them for a whole off season? What could be a really practical goal? Is it like increase shooting percentage, or is it just a subjective way how he moves?
It's different from the age groups, from position, from player to player, So you got different. How you say? You have guards, you have centers, you have power forwards, in basketball. So everybody struggles with a different problem. Shooters, they always want to improve their shooting percentage, so you base your workout on that. Or they want to improve, let's say, pick and roll game. So you try to create an environment where they're going to work on their ball handling, and you're going to simulate the situation where they're going to go in. Big guys, for example, footwork, getting the gravity down as low as possible. So it's different. It's different.
I mean, we just talked about one goal. How many goals do you set with one player? How many goals are too much goals? How many goals can a player focus on?
I personally don't set too many goals, and those goals in my eyes, they need to be, especially in the midterm, they need to be something what the player can accomplish, and but you got to follow the process, because if something doesn't go right, you got to be ready and flexible, to tackle the problem from different angles, because the most important thing that you see the movement and progression. So basically, I don't set too many goals.
Mm-hmm. Can you give a practical example? Is it like 1 goal, 3 goals, 5 goals for like a youth athlete?
Let's say 1 to 2 goals, and then go step by step.
Mm-hmm. How often do you recap with players? I mean, you said the progression is really important. How do you show the progression? How do you visualize it? How do you show the athlete that he got better?
I mean, in most of the cases so far, it's kind of happened by itself. Mm-hmm. Most of the players saw with the training process what we put in, saw the progression by themselves. So this is something what also is taking them or bringing them into work even harder, because they see the results, and this is something what makes you can use it as a drive, So it's kind of happened by itself.
When do you differentiate between like working for the weekends and working for the immediate success of the team, and when are you like, okay, I need to focus further away because player X doesn't have the capabilities yet to play, or how is that gonna merge together?
You mean this peaking by Friday?
Peaking by Friday. What they say.
I mean, every team, I think, in basketball, you try to prepare your players as best as possible from game to game, but you don't relate to that as much, as a short term. You gotta see the bigger picture, because the basketball is mostly a game where you face a similar situation more often in the season. So more important for me is after a certain period of time that the player comes in the phase where he's ready to solve those problems. So I would say, I'm more oriented to mid and the long-term phase than just from game to game, especially early in the season.
You said you're primarily an individual coach. How do you see your position compared to like a team coach, and how do you work together with them? Because I mean, they're also training with the team all the time. How do you see how do you handle that? How do you organize it?
I love this question. I really had the opportunity in my life to be a professional player. I was in position where I was head coach, assistant coach, but I found my it's kind of sound cliche, but I found my life meaning, and I love what I do. And I'm extremely happy, in this organization, with Jaka Lakovic as a head coach. We have like a really close bond, And the most important thing is that everything you do gotta fit the team philosophy, and you try to do as best as you can in order to, head coach satisfied, the team achieve a certain efficiency, and also the player inside. And beside Jaka, all the other coaches that are inside, we share the same bond. We're like a family with assistant coach Ty McCoy, or for example, head coach from Pro B. They all kind of gave me like open hands and lots of trust to do what I do normally. So it's got to be like a really tight relationship.
When we're talking about trust, I mean, I know it as an athletic coach. When players don't trust you in what you do, it's obviously not going to work the same as when they trust you. So how do you win the trust as an individual coach, and how do you keep the trust? What's like the deal?
It's basically, I was naturally like good in building up relationship with people, not only with the players, but this trust is being built with lots of passion, lots of love to the game, and lots of grind. People, and players especially, they can relate to that, and especially when they see you are for them on and off the court, this relationship kind of builds up by itself, and I think that's very important in order to get the maximum out of the player.
We talked to a professional physio in basketball as well, and he told us that often he feels more like a psychologist in many cases. Can you also relate to that as an individual coach, being outside of the direct like coaching from the team coaches? Can you also relate to that?
Yes, of course. I mean, if anybody say in professional sport, doesn't matter what you do, that this is easy, it's not, or you're doing something wrong. I mean, player development is not just something what is happening on the court. I mean, you got to be there for the players, for the problems that are happening in the game and also off the court, and you kind of go and try to be a mentor and psychologist to the player, in order to tackle the problems, it doesn't matter where they happen, on the court and off the court. And you kind of take these problems, on yourself, and you try to battle them with the players together.
When we talk about individual training, obviously a training plan is mandatory to get the best stimulus. How do you set up your training plan, and how far do you plan when you have the individual settings?
It's always different, in what kind of phase and what kind of time of the year you are. But I mostly set my training plan based on the topics that need to be solved, and based on the problems where the players are currently, in. And I think this is the most important thing. And then you go step by step, you're following what's happening, and then you can react if something doesn't go as you planned.
Do you communicate those topics or like those training goals with the team coaches? How much do they give you feedback in advance to set those topics?
Well, when you start something, and on the beginning, you got to have lots of communication. It's how our relationship started, for example, between me and the coach Jaka. But at a certain point, you come in a situation where everything is coming automatically. So sometimes it's less talking because the both sides know, what each side is doing, and this is something that's come like sort of automatically,
Definitely. Okay, let's say you get like a prospect for the summer, the whole off season, like 6 weeks, and you would have to design your whole individual training plan for this prospect to go NBA draft, to go to a good club. What would be kind of the first steps you do with the prospect, and how would you like talk to him?
Okay, first you got to know that before you start even anything, like I mentioned before, you got to be thorough, and you got to gather as much more information about players' current struggle or players' current characteristic. And then I kind of, during all these years, I kind of developed my own personal customized templates. They're based by age and characteristic of position of player that he's playing. And based on that, in the first 1 or 2 sessions, I'm trying to create my own picture, on how to tackle the problem, because I want to see by myself in the gym, how some things are really working with the player. And based on that, I sort of build up build up a progression, for that specific amount of time. And I try to do everything in order to get him better after he goes out from my gym.
What is your favorite mean of information? Like where, like, is it video? Is it conversation with the player? Is it actually seeing his workout? What is your favorite kind of like source of information collected?
There is like many things you can use and relate. Like I said, before anything, you try to get informations, just by hearing them from somebody. Then you try to visualize them like through videos, and then you try to read the numbers, of course. But the most favorite input of information when the player is finally there, and when you can test it through your templates.
In basketball, a question that always is mentioned again is like the repetition stuff. You have this myths and legends about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan getting up 1,000 shots a day. Do you think that's even necessary to put up that many shots, or what amount of exercise is really mandatory to make success?
I can totally relate to that, because basketball is a game of constant repetition. The players through their career, they're going to find themselves in a situation where they're going to repeat a certain move or certain game situation a million of times. So this is not a myth. I mean, those players being successful after so many repetitions, because you try to simulate the game as much as possible through the workout process. But what is very, very important for me in that specific phase is, as I said earlier, lots of things are repetitive, and lots of team coaches are using their own routines, and they're using the same stuff over and over and over again. And this is something where I figured out, because it's not that challenging anymore if you use for the player, and it's becoming a little bit monotone. And this is the way where I found myself tweaking those things on my way. I mean, the main part, don't get me wrong, is the same, but how you enter in the drill and how you get out of the drill, I try to tweak it as much as I can in order to be as challenging every time for the players when they do this repetitive kind of workout.
When we look at your Instagram, we see a lot of creative drills, we see a lot of competition. How much should be isolation, just standing there, getting shots up, and how much should be like this competition and competitive drills?
I mean, it's got to be a mixture of both. And, isolation is very, very important, and something, because of repetitive nature, it's got to be done, constantly, but you got to create like environment, where this isolation is going to be creative as possible, but also fits the standards of the game. For example, boosting up ball handling together with shots, what you said, I try to mix it up a little bit, So it's kind of both. That's very, very important.
How important is then the setup of the group, actually? We just talked about one athlete being off-season. Do you usually work in groups of players? Because, I mean, if you want to have a competitive session, like a section where you play 2 against 2, 2 against 1, how do you set up that group? How do you structure that?
Well, it's very, very important that the group is set up first position-wise, and also sort of level-wise together, because I really had I was blessed and honored, to have like top guards from all around Europe, or top guards big guys from all around Europe. So basically, sometimes you don't even need to play them like vice versa against each other. Sometimes just being together with different personalities is creating a competitive environment for the guys in order to be better in what they do. So, it's lots of exchanging there. Yeah,
definitely. Looking at the prospect again and seeing the training process in the certain amount of weeks, how do you know that you're on the path of succeeding the different goals you set? And when would you say, okay, we have to mix certain things up? How to keep progress on the track? How to keep track?
I think I gave the similar answer already before, but we can go through it one more time. I mean, I really try to tackle the specific situations with like a sort of a wide spectrum of drills that I'm using it, and in most of the cases, in my past couple of years, it was not necessary to apply a different angle because, like I said, somehow the development always went in the right direction. But always, I try to add something on top. You try to take something away, but it's very, very important, to follow and see if everything is going in the right direction.
Mm. I worked together with a coach, and he said I can't stay in a program longer than 3 years because then, I'm kind of worn out. I'm kind of like, I showed everything I can and I have to leave. I'm not sure if that's true, but how do you deal with seeing a player for 6 weeks, almost every day? How do you make sure that still works out after 6, 7, 8
I really
weeks?
cannot identify with that, because, I love what I do, and as long as I'm with player, for me, it's more beneficial because I'm capable of following, his development, like really on spot, so... Like I said, I really never saw this from this angle. I have a players, for example, Ismet Akminar, who is working with me since 2008. So this is something, what I would like to be continued in many, many years. And I like to have this relationship and this possibility with all of my players.
Mm-hmm.
Would you even argue the different kind of thing that staying longer with one player is even more beneficial?
What do you mean exactly?
That when you have, we see that Greg Popovich, I think is a very, very good example.
Yeah.
He's at the Spurs for, I don't know, I
Many
can think
years.
of the coach before, and obviously they have success. They won championships at the moment. Yeah, they're not in the playoff pictures, but always with the resources he got, he made a lot of progress. So, I mean, that would be basically the argument on the other hand, that you say, okay, having been there for a very, very long time is even more beneficial than changing up coaches.
Well, everybody's different, I think, and Greg was there before he became a head coach. He was, I think, a sport director, and he was the one who replaced the head coach and put himself on the position. But this is exactly what I think he really is. He liked the organization. He liked the work where he is. He liked the club, and he was very, very successful with one generation of players, and it's Duncan, Ginobili and Parker. But you see now in NBA is different also because it's not so usual that you can keep the same generation of players for a long time. But San Antonio had this luxury. Now, last couple of years is not like that, but he's still there and building up the players in the best possible ways he can do it.
Mm-hmm. Let's go a bit deeper into the load question. You mentioned that in the beginning of the podcast. What are the methods you're using to actually measure the load and to kind of like structure your training and adjust your training?
It's lots of communication. We have several systems, different systems we are using with the players. We had like heart measuring beepers, and it's lots of talks in between of head coach, performance coaches, and me. And with all those informations, you can be very, very efficient. But I don't know. In my case, I kind of monitor the players myself, visually, and see, on what kind of place they are. And you got to be flexible if there is like a little bit more space there to add up, or if they are like really drained up mentally and physically, then to reduce something. And you got to be very, very, very flexible about it.
Let's build a schedule for a week with our prospect. Let's say second week in. When would you train? How many times a day? And how many total practices?
There is no rule. I mean, you always try to form some kind of, parameters, but there is no rules. Some players are different. I've witnessed, for example, with Ismet or with Igor, they have a power of a running horse, and this, let's say 4 and the break rule, or 5 and the break rule doesn't apply on them. So you got to be really, really, into knowing your player and see, where to make the cuts and how to build up a certain amount of trainings, weekly trainings.
I have a really specific question about sleep, because when you watch all the documentaries, all the big players, they wake up at 4 o'clock. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant take their players at 4 o'clock to the gym and stuff. Nowadays, many people say, hey, I have to sleep. They want to train. What is your take on that?
I mean, from scientific point of view, sleep is extremely important. I mean, you have these stories outside, where you hear, Cristiano Ronaldo is sleeping like 800 times a day, 15 minutes, and you have the stories about Michael and Kobe. You gotta know that Kobe also had a pretty serious injury, by tearing his Achilles. Maybe that's also like a side effect of not sleeping well. Who knows? Nobody knows. And then you have like individuals who really don't need no sleep. Maybe Michael Jordan was one of them, and I met a couple of guys like that in my career. So what the laws of science doesn't apply on them, but we are trying to follow the rule where sleeping is extremely important.
When you would take like one day and you have these different times, certain players obviously are better off in the morning in training times. Certain people are better at lunch in the evening. When you have multiple practices at one day, how would you structure them? How much time in between at least? And how long will the practices be?
It's also in the individual nature of the player and based on current mood and sleeping, eating probably. But you also got to see, where was a little bit more load, where was a little bit less load, where to take something out, where to add something, where just sometimes it's just enough to come in the gym and talk to the player. So it's like different things you got to take in consideration.
Moris, we still have two questions. My first question is, what is the most important drill in individual, like player development in basketball? Your favorite drill, the most important drill, what would it be?
What is the most important drill?
It's up to you. You can choose. It's up to you to choose the parameters to choose from.
It's kind of a buzz question, but I want to know.
There is no most important drill.
Do you have a favorite one?
I mean, the favorite one is always, I basically have more of them, So, but I think the most important drill is to learn the player to embrace the hard-working ethic. It's not like drill. It's not like how you say answer probably you wanted to give, but I have so many favorite things I'm using, and I cannot really decide for one thing because position-wise, I have many things I like to use.
Second question. I mean, obviously, we are sitting in a very nice gym. We are at Ratiopharm Ulm, as already said in the beginning. Big facility, nice looking. So you achieved a lot of goals already, maybe for yourself. What are big sport goals for you to come?
Well, I had this question a couple of weeks ago for big Deutschland magazine, and this is an interesting question for me because like the sports goals kind of change down all these years, because as I said earlier, I was a professional player and I was a head coach, and then you kind of set your goals in order to win the games, to be as competitive as you can, but by working with so much talent, in the different age and different from different clubs, from different levels, you kind of end up in position where only thing that is like your big sport goal is following their progression and following that progress in the players becoming better players and better persons, and this is something what is fulfilled me the most at the moment. It's kind of like a great picture I'm looking at, because with all these teams, for example in the club, so we work with many teams. You cannot only base your sport goals on winning every game. So it's kind of the greater picture I'm looking at the moment.
Besides our podcast, what are other means to reach you, learn from you, work together with you?
Come into my gym. Come into my gym. Let's work.
Yeah.
Nice.
You also, I also saw that I think on Instagram, you're also providing a coaching clinic this summer. Maybe you also want to mention that today?
It's not only a coach's clinic, it's much more than that. And this is exactly the time where I would like to invite you again to come. We're going to have a pretty awesome project next or this upcoming summer with off-season workouts and coaches clinic and international elite camp for youth players. I'm kind of proud that we manage as an organization to invite Phil Handy, who is arguably one of the best player development trainers in the world. He's a 3-time NBA champion, and he is assistant coach from LA Lakers. He had the possibility to work with Kobe Bryant before, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, and many more. So he's going to be here, and beside him, I'm kind of glad that we managed to collect EuroLeague elite. One of the names I can mention there is Neven Spahia. He is a former NBA assistant coach and now currently EuroLeague head coach of Baskonia. So he's a coach with a great career, a very trophy coach, and I'm really, really happy that those guys are coming. So this is going to be like a great possibility for every player, coach, trainer to come here, to learn, to get better, to work. So I hope to see you there, guys.
We will put everything in the show notes. Every link you provide for this program. Really, really interesting. Fadi?
Also, I would put your Instagram name, if that's okay, in the
no problem.
I don't mind. In the show description, so you can check out how it looks when people actually don't talk but train here. So nice. Everything what you need for information is down in the description. Thank you, Moris, for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the podcast.
I'm really excited now to see more of the facility. Also. Thank you very much for actually giving an insight. That's amazing.
I will give you a full tour right now.
Thanks.
Perfect. See you guys.
Let's get this tour started.
Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.